ओम श्री परमात्मने नमः। श्रीमद्भागवत महापुराणम प्रथमः स्कंदः अथ प्रथमोऽध्यायः। जय श्री कृष्ण। श्रीमद्भागवत महापुराण बुक 1 डिस्कोर्स 1। Shaunaka and other sages interrogate the famous Sutta Ugarshrava. We meditate on the transcendent reality, God, from whom this universe springs up, in whom it abides and into whom it returns, because He is invariably present in all existing things and is distinct from all known entities, who is self-conscious and self-effulgent, who revealed to Brahma the very first seed. By His mere will the Vedas that cause bewilderment even to the greatest sages, in whom this threefold creation, consisting of Sattva, Raja and Tama, though unreal, appears as real because of the reality of its substratum, even as the sun's rays, which are made up of the element of fire, are mistaken for water in a mirage, water for earth and earth for water. And whoever excludes Maya by his own self-effulgent glory, in this glorious Bhagavata produced by the great sage Ved Vyasa, has been taught the supreme religion, the religion of God worship, the Bhagavata Dharma, as it is called, which is entirely free from all self-deception in the shape of desire, including the desire for moksha or liberation. Nay, herein has been expounded that absolute reality which can be known only by saints who are free from malice, nay, which is the best hour of supreme bliss, and uproots the threefold agony, the agony caused by bodily distemper, that which is attributable to natural agencies, that inflicted by a fellow beings, while it is doubtful that God can be speedily captured in one's heart by other means. He can be instantly seized through this work by those blessed persons who have keen desire to hear it repeated. Oh yeah, devotees possessing a taste for divine joy, Srimad Bhagavata is the fruit essence of the wish-yielding tree of Veda, dropped on earth from the mouth of the parrot like sage Shuka, and is full of the nectar of supreme bliss. It is unmixed sweetness, devoid of rain, seed or other superfluous matter. Go on drinking this divine nectar again and again, till there is consciousness left in you. Once upon a time, in the forest known as Naimisharanya, the modern Nimishar in Audh, a place sacred to Lord Vishnu, Shaunaka and other sages were engaged in a great sacrifice to be completed in the course of 1,000 years, with a view to realizing the Lord who is sung in heaven and is the abode of his devotee. One morning, having poured oblations into the sacred fire, the sages paid their respects to the Sutta, and when he had taken his seat, they asked him the following questions with due reverence. The sages said, O sinless Sutta, you have indeed studied and also expounded all the Puranas and Itihas as well as the codes of laws, whatever is known by the divine sage Badarayana, Ved Vyasa, so called because he is reputed to have his abode in a grove of Jabju trees, the foremost among the knowers of Veda, and even by other sages who have realized both the qualified and absolute aspects of the Godhead. You know all that in reality by their grace, which you were able to earn by your guileless and pure heart. For the teachers confide even their profoundest secrets to their beloved pupil. Be pleased to tell us, O long-lived Sutta, that which you have determined through a study of all those sacred books as the unfailing and easy means to the supreme good of man. O the ornament of holy congregations in the age of Kali, people are mostly short-lived, slothful, little inclined to tread the path of God realization, most dull-witted, unlucky and tormented with diseases and other evils. The scriptures too are numerous and inculcate not one discipline, but a number of practice and rituals, and besides being too voluminous, they have to be listened to part by part. Therefore, be involved as you are, draw out by your critical insight their acute senses and declare the same to us, who are full of faith, so that our mind may become placid and tranquil. Sutta, God blessed you. You know the purpose for which the Divine Lord, the protector of his devotee, was born of Devaki Vasudeva's consort. Dear Sutta, please explain it to us who are keen to hear of same, for the Lord's descent on this earth is intended for the protection and prosperity of all living beings. Anyone who has fallen into the terrible whirlpool of birth and death can be speedily delivered from the same if he utters his name even helplessly, for fear itself is afraid of the Lord. Sutta sages who have taken shelter in his feet and therefore ever abide in perfect calm forthwith purify those who come in contact with them, whereas the waters of the celestial stream Ganga cleanse the heart only by long and continued use, because they are no longer in the direct touch with those feet, although they still retain their purifying virtue because of the touch they once had with them. Is there anyone who, though desirous of purifying one's soul, would refuse to hear the glory of the Divine Lord, whose exploits are extolled by saints of holy renown, since such glory wiped out the impurities of the Kali age? Narrate to us who are full of reverence the noble doing of the Lord, who playful assumes various forms, the doing that have been sung by seers like Narada and others. O wise Sutta, now recount the blessed stories of the descent of the Almighty Lord, who enacts at will sports of various kind by dint of his Yog Maya, divine potency. We for our part are never stated with hearing the exploits of the illustrious Lord, which are more and more delightful to hear at every step to those listeners who have a taste for sweet things. Indeed, the divine Sri Krishna, who had disguised himself in a human semblance, performed with his elder brother Sri Balarama feats that were beyond human power. Having come to know that the age of Kali has arrived, we are assembled in the holy retreat sacred to Sri Vishnu for a long sacrificial session, and have thus got ample time to hear the stories of Sri Hari. This age of Kali takes away the purity of man's heart and is thus difficult to conquer. Anxious as we are to get over the Kali, Providence has arranged our meeting with you, even as a pilot is shown to those who seek to cross a turbulent sea, since Sri Krishna, the master of yoga, the friend of the Brahmanas and the protector of virtue, has left for his abode in heaven. Tell us in whom has right houseness sought protection now. Thus ends the first discourse, forming part of the story relating to the Naimisha forest in Book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita, the book of the God-realized souls. Jai Shri Krishna. अथ द्वितीयो अध्यायः जय श्री कृष्ण। डिस्कोर्स सेकंड, ग्लोरी ऑफ द लॉर्ड्स नैरेटिव and of devotion to him. Vyasa says, Ugrashrava, the son of Romharshana, was transported with joy to hear this question of the holy Brahmanas. He welcomed their words and commenced his discourse. Sutta said, when the sage Devyapayana, Ved Vyasa lit, one who was born in an island, saw his son Sukhdeva going away all alone with the intention of leading the life of recluse, even though he had not yet been invested with the sacred thread and had therefore had no occasion to perform any secular or religious duties. He was agitated at the thought of separation from him and called out, "Hello, my son." At that time it was the trees on the roadside that respond on his behalf, filled as they were by his presence. I bowed to that sage. Shukdeva was being one with the universal spirit, has access to the hearts of all. Srimad Bhagavata is a mysterious Purana. It possesses a glory of its own and constitutes the very essence of all the Vedas. It is a unique light illuminating the spiritual realities for those worldly men who seeks to go beyond the darkness of ignorance. It was out of compassion for such men that this teacher of sages, Shukdeva, uttered this Purana. I take refuge in that son of Vyasa after bowing to the divine sages Narayana and Nara, the Supreme Person Sri Krishna, Goddess Saraswati, the goddess of speech, and the sage Vyasa, one should then recite Srimad Bhagavata, which enables one to conquer the cycle of birth and death as well as all the aberrations of the mind. Sages, you have done well in asking me a question which is conducive to the welfare of the world. For your inquiry relates to Sri Krishna, a topic which completely purifies the heart. That alone is the highest duty of man, from which follows devotion to Sri Krishna, a devotion which is absolutely motiveless and knows no obstruction, and as a result of which the soul realizes the all-blissful God and thus attains its object, contact established with Bhagwan Vasudeva, Shri Krishna. Through devotion, speedily awakeness, dispassion and immediate knowledge, a duty well performed is but labor lost if it fails to generate love for the stories of Bhagwan Vishwaksena, Shri Krishna. Riches cannot be the end of dharma, virtue which culminates in absolution or final beatitude. Even so, wealth is a means of earning religious merit. Sensuous enjoyment has not been recognized as its consummations. Again, gratification of the senses is not the end of sensuous enjoyment. Keeping the body and soul together is the only use of sensuous enjoyment, and inquiry into truth is the object of keeping the body and soul together, and not the attainment of heaven, etc. Through the performance of pious acts, the knowers of the truth declare knowledge alone as the reality. That knowledge which does not admit of duality, the distinction of subject and object, in other words, which is individual and one without a second, and which is called by different names such as Brahma, the Absolute, Paramatma, the Supreme Spirit or Oversoul, and Bhagwan, the Deity. Sages who are full of faith perceive that truth as their own self in their own heart through devotions coupled with knowledge and dispassion and acquired through hearing of Srimad Bhagavata, etc. Therefore, O noblest of Brahmanas, the consummation of duties efficiently performed by men according to their respective varna, grade in society and ashrama, stage in life, lies in securing the pleasure of Sri Hari. Hence, with undivided mind, one should ever hear and sing the praises of, meditate upon and worship the Lord, who is the protector of his devotees. The learned who are armed with the sword of the constant meditation on him cut asunder that hard knot of karma therewith, who then would not take delight in his stories. By resorting to holy places of pilgrimage, O Brahmanas, one obtains the privilege of waiting on exalted souls and thereby successively develops a desire for hearing the stories of Bhagwana Vasudeva Shri Krishna. Faith in and relish for such stories. Shri Krishna is a disinterested friend of the virtues, and his praise sensitifies those who listen to or sing them. He abides in the heart of those who hear his stories and uproots the evil propensities of their mind. When the evil propensities are well nigh eradicated through the constant service of his devotees or the day-to-day study of Srimad Bhagavata, their wells of abiding devotions to the Lord of excellent fame, the mind is then freed from passion such as lust and greed, which have their root in rajas and tama, and established in sattva, attains purity in this way. When one is rid of all worldly attachment through loving devotion to the Lord, and the mind is filled with the delight, one realizes the truth relating to God as a matter of course. The moment a man sees God as his very self, the knot of ignorance in his heart is broken asunder, all his doubts are dispersed, and the entire stock of his karma gets liquidated. That is why with utmost delight the wise constantly practice devotions to Lord Vasudeva, which purifies the soul. Sattva, Raja and Tama are the three attributes or modes of Prakriti. Assuming these for the preservation, creation and destruction of this universe, the one Supreme Person severally bears the names of Hari, Vishnu, Brahma and Hara, Shiva. Yet the supreme good of man flows from Sri Hari alone, whose body consists of pure sattva, just as smoke is higher, more active than wood, which is an earthly substance, and hence inert and dull, and higher than smoke is fire, which is associated with many sacrificial acts recommended in the three Vedas. Even so, Raja, the principle of motion or activity, is superior to Tama, darkness or interior, and even higher than Raja is Sattva, the principle of light or knowledge, with the help of which one is able to realize God. Of your sages worshipped for their salvation, Bhagwana Vishnu alone, which is pure sattva personified. Even now those who follow in their footsteps likewise and get qualified for blessedness, those seeking liberation worship Bhagwana Narayana and his part manifestation, all of whom are so gentle in aspect, leaving alone the lord of evil spirits, Bhairava and others, who possess a terrible form, though not revealing them. Those, however, who possess a rasika or tamsika disposition and are seekers of wealth, power and progeny, worship the men's evil spirits and the Lord of created being, possessing as they do a character similar to theirs. The Vedas ultimately treat of Bhagwana Vasudeva. The sacrifice themselves aim at the attainment of Vasudeva. The various yogas eventually lead to Vasudeva, and all sort of rituals to have their end in Vasudeva. All wisdom has its culmination in Vasudeva. All austere penance has Vasudeva for its goal. All virtue aims at the realization of Vasudeva, and all destinies culminate in Vasudeva. Although the Lord is himself beyond Prakriti, primordial matter and its three modes, sattva, etc. Yes, it was he who evolved this universe at the beginning of creation through his own Maya Prakriti, which consists of the aforesaid three gunas and is both real in its phenomenal aspect and unreal, having entered into these three gunas that have been involved by the aforesaid Maya. He appears as possessed of these gunas, though essentially he is consciousness personified, just as fire, though really one appears as many when abiding in the different logs of wood that manifest it. So does God, the soul of the universe, though essentially one, appear as many when manifested in different beings, entering as the soul the various material bodies created by himself out of the various evolutes of the three gunas, such as the subtle elements, the senses and the mind. The Lord enjoy the sense objects appropriate to such bodies. It is He, again, who creates the different worlds and descending by way of sport in different species, such as the gods, the human beings and the low form of life, protects all the beings through his sattva or goodness. Thus end the second discourse, forming part of the story relating to the Naimisha forest in Book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita. Jai Shri Krishna. अथ तृतीयो अध्यायः जय श्री कृष्ण. Discourse third. The Lord's avatars or descents into the world of matter. Sutta says, in the beginning of creation, with the desire of evolving the different worlds, the Lord assumed the form of Purusha, the primal person consisting of 16 component principles, the 10 sense organs, the 5 elements and mind, and constituted of Mahat, the cosmic intellect, etc. While he, the aforesaid Purusha, was displaying his sleep of Samadhi, absorption into or communion with the self, respawning on the casual waters, there appeared from the lake of his navel a lotus wherefrom sprung up Brahma, the Lord of progenitors of the world. It is on the disposition of his limbs that the various world stands superimposed. That is the most exalted form of the Lord, consisting of pure sattva or goodness. The yogis behold that form by means of their divine eye, wonderful as it is with its thousands of feet, thighs, arms and faces. It has thousands of heads, ears, eyes and noses, and is resplendent with thousands of diadems, robes and earrings. This form of the Lord, popularly known by the name of Narayana, is the imperishable seed of the various avatars and the abode to which they all return. After accomplishing their purpose, it is by a ray, mercy of his ray, Brahma, that gods, human being and the law form of life are created. It was this very Lord Narayana who, first manifesting himself as the Kumaras, Sanaka and others, took the form of 4 Brahmanas and observed the hard vow of perpetual celibacy. During the second Avatara manifestation, the Lord of all sacrifices assumed the form of the divine boar with a view to lifting the earth that had sunk into the lowest depths of the ocean, in order to proceed with the work of creation, appearing in the person of the celestial sage Narada. In his third manifestation as a rishi, he taught the gospel of the Vaishnavas, the Panchatantra, which include the method of doing things in such a way that they may cease to bind us. During his fourth manifestation, in which he was born of the Dharma's better half Murti, he appeared in the dual form of the sages Nara and the Narayana. and practiced severe penance with perfect control of the mind and senses. His fifth manifestation was known by the name of Kapila, the lord of the Siddhas, perfect ones, who taught to the sage Asuri the Sankhya system of philosophy that determines the nature of the fundamental principles and had been cast into oblivion through the ravages of time. During his sixth manifestation, he appeared as a son of the sage Atri at the entr'ty of Anshoya, Atri's wife, and taught the science of the self to King Alarka, Prahlada, and others. Thereafter, in the seventh manifestation, he was born Akruti, the spouse of Ruchi, one of the lords of created beings, as Yajna, assisted by his son Syama and the other gods. He held the office of Indra during the first Manvantara, presided over by Swayambhuva, Queen Meru Devi, the spouse of King Nabhi, and taught by his own example the mode of life of the Paramahansas, enlightened souls who have transcended all bounds of morality and have no duty to perform, which is ordered by men belonging to all the four ashramas or stages prathu, and made the earth in the form of a cow yield all its products which she had so far withheld. And hence this particular manifestation of the Lord proved most propitious to the world at the end of the Kausuka Manvantara, when all the three worlds were being deluged by the ocean. He took the form of a fish during his 10th manifestation and rescued the future Vaivastha Manu, the Lord of the present Manvantara, picking him up on the earth, which had been transformed into a boat. During his 11th manifestation, when the gods and the demons began chewing the ocean with Mount Mandara, the Lord assumed the form of a tortoise and supported Mount Mandara on his back. In his 12th descent, he took the form of Dhanvantri and emerged from the ocean with a jar full of nectar, while during his 13th manifestation, he assumed the form of an enchanting woman and gave the gods the nectar to drink, keeping the others, the demons, spellbound all the while. In his 14th manifestation, he took the form of a man lion and tore with his claws the bosom of the most powerful demon king Hiranyakashipu. Even as a maker of straw, mats would tear a reed. Assuming the form of a dove in his 15th descent, he visited the sacrificial performance of Bali, the demon king, and asked him for the peace of a land with the covert intention of robbing him of his kingdom of heaven. In his 16th descent as Parshurama, he found that the king had become initial to the Brahmanas. Enraged at he rid the earth of the Kshatriya race as many as 21 times. Then in his 17th descent as Vyasa, he was born of Satyavati through the sage of Parashara, and finding the people of poor intelligence, divided the tree of Veda into many branches. Then again in the 18th descent, he assumed the form of a ruler of men, Sri Rama, with a view to accomplishing the purpose of the gods, and performed heroic feats like briding the ocean and so on. In the 19th and the 20th, the Lord was born among the Vrashnis as Balrama and Sri Krishna, and relieved the earth of its burden. When Kali sets in, he will be born in Magdha, North Bihar, as Buddha, son of Ajna, with a view to deluding the enemies of God. Again towards the end of the Kali age, when the king mostly turned into robbers, the Lord of the universe will take descent from a Brahmana named Vishnu Yasa as Lord Kalki. Even as thousands of rivulets from the lake that never dries, so there are countless descents of the Lord, who is storehouse of sattva, power, wisdom, etc. of Brahmanas, the sages and seers, the Manus, the gods, the sons of the Manus, the Prajapatis, lords of the created beings, In fact, all those who possess great power are rays of Sri Hari. All these, however, are either part manifestation or rays of the Supreme Person, while Sri Krishna is the Lord Himself. All these avatara or manifestation of the Lord appear from age to age and protect the world when it is oppressed by the enemies of the Indra. The story of the Lord's descent is a secret. The man who devotedly recitates it every evening and morning with a pure mind is rid of all suffering. The gross manifestation in the form of the material universe of the Lord, who is essentially spiritual and has no material form, has been evolved by the products of his Maya, such as Mahat, the principle of cosmic intelligence, and so on, and the superimposed on the Lord Himself. Even as a man of poor wits assumed the existence of the clouds in ether and of dustiness in the air, even though the cloud as a matter of fact hang in the air while dustiness belongs to the particles of earth. So the ignorant superimpose the gross phenomenal universe on the self, who is the seer. Beyond the material form is a suitable and unmanifest form of the Lord, which is constituted of undeveloped gunas that have not assumed distinct shapes and is neither open to perception nor to hearing. It is this subtable or astral body which is termed as the jiva or soul, because the soul seems to enter it or is identified with it and goes through repeated birth or transmigration. It is through nescience that the aforesaid astral and material bodies are superimposed on the self. When this superimposition is removed through self-knowledge, that very moments take place the realization of Brahma. The knowers of truth are aware that when the Lord's powerful Maya in the shapes of knowledge withdraws, the Jiva becomes one with Brahma and gets established in the glory of the self. In such terms do the wise describe the descents as well as the doing of the Lord, who is the ruler of all heart and really without birth or action, for his descents and doing are a guarded secret of Vedas. The pastimes of the Lord are always purposive. By mere sport He creates, preserves and resolves this universe, but never get attached to it. Abiding, perceived in heart of all living beings, He seems to enjoy the objects of the mind and the five senses as the ruler of all the six. But being the master of His self, He remains aloof from these objects. They fail to bind Him. No stupid creatures can know by any dialectical skill the names of form or doing of the Lord revealed by His thought or word, any more than an ignorant man can understand the performance of a conjurer accomplished through his will and speech. The power of the Lord who wields the discus in His hand is infinite. Though the maker of this world, He remains ever beyond it. He alone can know His ways, who inhales the fragrance of His lotus feet through constant and sincere devotion to them. Now you blessed ones are lucky indeed, since you in this life and in this world, which is full of impediments and obstacles, thus cultivate that undivided love to Bhagwan Vasudeva, Sri Krishna, the Lord of the entire universe, by virtue of which one never falls again into the terrible vortex of birth and death. The divine seer Veda Vyasa composed this Purana, known by the name of Srimad Bhagavata, which stands on a par with the Vedas and contains the stories of the Lord of excellent renown. He taught this blessed, benedictory and great Purana for the highest good of mankind to his son Shukdeva, who is the foremost among self-realized souls. This represents the very cream extracted from all the Vedas and Itihas. Shuka in his turns dictated into the great king Parikshit, who sat on the bank of the Ganga, surrounded by the foremost sages, with a vow to fast unto death. Now that Sri Krishna has left for his divine abode with piety, wisdom, and all the sun-like Purana has made its appearance for the benefit of those who have been blinded by the darkness of ignorance in this Kali age, while the glorious sage Shukdeva, O Brahmanas, who dictating this Purana, there on the bank of the Ganga, I too was present and learned it by his grace. I will now recite the same to you even as I have learned it, according to the best of my lights. Thus, and the third discourse forming part of the story relating to the Naimisha forest in book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramhansa Samhita. Jai Shri Krishna. Ath Chaturtho Adhyay, Discourse 4. A sense of frustration overtakes Vedavyasa. Vedavyasa says, when Suta spoke thus, Shaunaka, who was a student of Rig Veda and the head of a large seminary, and was the oldest of the sages assembled for that long sacrificial session, applauded him and said, Shaunaka said, Suta, you are highly blessed and the foremost of the expositors. Pray, repeat to us the same sacred story of the Lord as the divine sage Shuka recited to King Parikshit, in which particular yoga and was the discourse held at that place, and what was the ocean for it, and at whose instance did the sage Krishna Vedavyasa compose this Samhita, large collections of poems. His son Shukdeva is a great yogi mystic, viewing all like in whose eyes diversity has ceased to exist, whose mind is exclusively set upon God, and who has awoke from the sleep of worldliness. He remains incognite, and it's therefore taken for a stupid fellow. On perceiving the sage Vyasa closely following his son, who was retiring to the forest as a recluse, the ladies who happened to be bathing in a pond on the roadside covered themselves out of modesty, even though the sage had clothes on, while they took no notice of his son, who was stark naked. Noticing this strange behavior on their part, the sage asked them to account for it. Thereupon the ladies told him that he was still alive to the difference of sex, but not so his son, whose vision was faultless, who perceives no difference at all. How did the citizens of the Hastinapura come to recognize him when he visited the Kuru Jangla country and went about that city like one man, dumb and dull? And how did the royal sage Parikshit, a Sishan of Pandu, come to have a talk with the sage, in the course of which the latter recited this Bhagavata Purana, that highly blessed sage Shukdeva waits at the door of householder to sanctify their abode only for such times as one takes in milking a cow. They say King Parikshit, Abhimanyu's son, O Suta, was counted among the foremost devotees of Lord. Kindly narrate to us the story of his most wonderful birth and doing. Why did the emperor, who served to enhance the glory of the Pandavas, take his seat on the bank of the Ganga with the vow to fast unto death, spoiling his imperial fortune? Enemies bowed at his footstool, bringing to him riches for their own security. It is really strange, dear Suta, how did that valiant prince, while he was so young, take into his head to relinquish that fortune which is so difficult to re-announce, as well as his life. Men who are slowly devoted to the Lord of excellent fame live, not for their own sake, but only for promoting the welfare, affluence and prosperity of the world. Why then did he cast off his body, which was the support of other beings, in a spirit of aversion? Therefore, pray tell us all that we have asked you on the occasion for we know you have mastered the entire range of sacred lore bearing of his course, the Vedas. Suta replied, in the Dwapara age, the third yuga of the present Chaturyugi, the period of 4 yugas from Satya to Kali, the great yogi Vyasa, who is a part manifestation of Sri Hari, was born of Satyavati, who had sprung from the seeds of Uparikira Vasu. Through the sage Parashara, one day after taking his bath in the sacred water of the Saraswati, he sat in a lonely place just as sunrise. The sage, who had unfailing eye and could read the past as well as the future, saw how by the flux of time, which passed unnoticed, there unused in every age an overlapping of duties, as a result of which the potency of material objects had diminished and people had grown irreverent, vague, dull-witted and short-lived. Finding the people so unlucky, the sage began to investigate by means of his divine insight as to wherein lay the welfare of man belonging to all the grades of society and stages of life, perceiving that Vedic sacrifices which are performed through the agency of 4 priests, the Hota, the Adharvayu, the Udghata and the Brahma, are the purifier of man. He divided the one Veda into 4 for the constituents of sacrifices. He thus separated the 4 Vedas under the names of Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda and Atharveda, and the Itihasa and the Puranas are called the 5th Veda. Of this Paila received was taught Rig Veda. The seer Gemini was the first who learned how to chant the Samaveda, while Vaishampayana was the only who was mastered the Yajur Veda. The sage of Sumantu, son of Drona, acquired proficiency in the Atharva Veda, while Maisuta's father of Romharshana gained mastery over the Itihasas and Puranas. These latter sages, Paila and others, divided their respective Vedas into more than 1 branches. In this way, through their pupils, and the pupils of these latter, the 4 Vedas came to be divided into so many branches. The divine Vyasa, who is compassionate to men of poor wits, eventually did so in order that even the dull-witted might be able to retain the Vedas in parts. Seeing that the women, the Shudras and the fallen Brahmas, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas were debarred even from hearing the Vedas and did not know how to perform acts that are conducive to good, the sage Vedavyasa, who good enough to compose the Mahabharata epic in order that women and adults too might attain blessedness through the same. Even though Vyasa ever remained wholeheartedly engaged in doing good to living creatures, his heart was not satisfied with it. O Brahmanas, feeling uneasy at heart, the sage, who knew the secret of dharma, right outness, sat reflecting in a secluded spot on the holy bank of the Saraswati, and said to himself thus, observing the vow of celibacy, I reverently studied the Vedas, served the elders and worshipped the sacrificial fires, and honestly followed their precepts. I have also revealed the purport of the Vedas through the Mahabharata, in which even women, the Shudras and the others can find their respective duties and other things explained, though I stand foremost among those who are preeminent in sacred knowledge and possess uncommon powers too. My soul, it seems, has not yet realized its true nature. Oneness with Brahma, is it because I have not yet fully expounded the virtues that enable one to attain the Lord? It is these virtues that are loved by God-realized saints, and they alone are dear to Lord Vishnu himself. While the sage Krishna Devapyana Vyasa was the soaring with the consciousness that something was wanting in him. The sage Narada called at his hermitage already referred to. When the sage Vedavyasa saw Narada come, he instantly rose to receive him and duly offered worship to the celestial sage, who was adored even by the gods. Thus ends the fourth discourse forming part of the story relating to the Naimisha forest in Book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramhansa Samhita. Jai Shri Krishna. अथ पंचमो अध्याय जय श्री कृष्ण डिस्कोर्स फिफ्थ ग्लोरी ऑफ सिंगिंग द लॉर्ड्स प्रेज एंड एन अकाउंट ऑफ Devarishi Narada's previous life. Sutta says, when comfortably seated, lute in hand, the celestial sage Narada of extensive renown spoke to the Brahma sage Vedavyasa, who sat beside him, as if smiling at his disconsolation. Narada said, "Most blessed Vyasa, son of Parashara, I hope your physical self as well as your mental self are satisfied in themselves. I am sure all that you have wanted to know has been fully realized since you produced the most wonderful Mahabharata, which fully deals with all the objects of the human drama. You have also investigated the truth of and realized the eternal Brahma, the Absolute. Nevertheless, my Lord, you bewail your lot as if you had not yet realized the object of your life." Vyasa replied, "All that you have said about me is true, yet my soul finds no satisfaction. We ask you the cause of it, which is unknown to me, since your knowledge is unfathomable, you being a son of Brahma, the self-born. You know all hidden truth, inasmuch as you have worshipped the most ancient person, who is the ruler of both Prakriti and Purusha, matter and spirit, and who by his very thought creates, sustains and reobserves the universe with the help of the three gunas. Though remaining unattached to the same, you go about all the three worlds, even as the sun does, and moving within all like the vital air by dint of yogic power. You can read the mind of all, even though I have fully realized through the practice of yoga and the observance of the sacred vows, both the Supreme Brahma, the Absolute, and the Brahma in the form of the Vedas. Pray point out to me my great deficiency." Narada replied, "You have failed to sing adequately the stainless glory of the Lord. I consider that wisdom to be deficient, which does not tend to please that Lord. O chief of sages, you have not so fully described the glory of Bhagwan Vasudeva. As you have dealt with the objects of the human pursuit, such as dharma, etc., speech, which though full of figurative expressions, never utters the praises of Sri Hari. The praises that possess the virtue of sanctifying the whole world is considered to be the delight of voluptuous men who wallow in the pleasures of sense like crows that feed upon the dirty leaving of food, like swans that are traditionally believed to have their abode in the lotus beds of the Mansarovara lake. Devotees who have taken shelter in the lotus feet of the Lord and therefore ever abide in his heart never take delight in such speech. On the other hand, that composition's immortal Lord, bearing the impress of his glory, wipes out the sins of the people. It is such composition that pious men love to hear, sing and repeat to an audience, that wisdom to which is free from blemish and is a direct means to the attainment of liberations does not adorn one's soul so much. If it is devoid of devotion to Lord Achyuta, how then can action with an interested motive, which is rooted in sorrow at every stage, both while it is being performed and at the times of its fruition, and even disinterested action that has not been dedicated to God serve to heighten one's glory. Endowed with the unfailing eye and possessed of sacred renown, O highly blessed Vyasa, you are devoted to truth and steadfast of resolve. Therefore, with a concentrated mind, now recall the exploits of Sri Hari, who wields unthinkable power with a view to the liberation of the entire humanity. The man who desires to talk of anything else than the Lord exploits falls into trap of the manifold names and forms evolved by such desires and sees diversity everywhere. Like a boat between by blast, his unsteady mind finds no rest anywhere. It was a great error on your part to have enjoined horrible acts involving destructions of a life in the name of religion on the men who are naturally addicted to such acts. Misguided by these precepts of you, the ordinary man who the world would believe such acts to be pious and would refuse to honor the teaching that prohibit such actions. Only some wise man can, by withdrawing from worldly enjoyments, experiences the supreme bliss which form the essential character of the eternal and infinite Lord. Therefore kindly narrates the exploits of the Lord for the good of those who are working under the impulse of their three gunas, moods of Prakriti, and lack the spiritual senses. Has ever befallen him anywhere, in any form or birth, who adore the lotus feet of Sri Hari, neglecting his own duty, even if he dies at a stage when he is yet unripe in his devotion, or falls from his Shraddha, sadhana. On the other hand, what purpose has been achieved by those who fails to worship God? Through devotion to their duty, a wise man should strive after the object alone, which cannot be attained by going round from the highest Brahma abode to the lowest infernal regions. As for the pleasures of senses, they are had a matter of course everywhere, like a sorrow, as a result of vast actions by flux of time, which is too quick to be perceived. Dear Vyasa, a servant of Lord Mukunda, the best hour of liberation never returns to this world, consisting of birth and death. Like others, men of action who are averse to the Lord's worship, even if by accidents, the turns above to him at any time, recalling the joy of having once mentally embraced the Lord's lotus feet, he would not think of abandoning them. Since he has tasted their sweetness, this universe is no other than the Lord, who is yet apart from it, being responsible for the constituents, destruction and coming into being of the world. You know it yourself, yet I have indicated it to you by way of a hint. O Vyasa of unfailing vision, know it for yourself that you are a ray of the highest person, the Supreme Spirit, and that though unborn, you have taken birth for the good of the world. Therefore describe at full length the exploits of the Lord of exalted glory. The wise have declared that the abiding purpose of man's austere penance, sacred knowledge, sacrificial performance, recitations of the Vedas with correct intonation, enlightenment, and best all of gifts is to recount the virtue of that Lord of excellent fame. During the last Kalpa, in my previous existence, O sage, I was born of a mad servant of Brahmanas, well versed in the Vedas, while yet a boy. I was told off to serve some yogis wandering asides who wished to stop at one place during the rains. Though a mere child, I was free from all childish frolics, was quite take and submissive, spoke little, and remained aloof from playthings, though viewing all alike the sages were particularly kind to me, who did all kinds to service to them with the willing constance of those Brahmanas. I ate once in 24 hours whatever was left in their dishes after they had finished their meals, and was thereby cleansed of all sins. Thus engaged in their service, I attained purity of mind, which conceived a liking for their religious creed, the creed of devotion. There, in that society of goodly men, by the grace of those saints who were given to singing the Lord's praises, I would daily listen to the soul-reviving stories of Sri Krishna. Even as I heard these stories with reverence, O dear Vyasa, step by step I developed an attraction for the Lord of delightful fame. When I developed an affinity for him, O great sage, my mind got firmly established in that Lord of delightful glory. Through such a mind, I began to perceive the whole of this gross and subtle world as assumed in me, the Absolute by Maya. In this way, throughout the rains as well as in the coming autumn, I heard with rapt attention thrice every day the holy praise of Sri Hari as they were sung by those high-souled sages, and forthwith sprouted in my heart the devotion which eradicates the elements of Raja's passion, the Tamas ignorance to me, who was devoted to those sages, modest in bearing, sinless, full of faith, tame and submissive. Through yet a child, those saints, compassionate as they were to the afflicted, gradually imparted, when about to depart, that most historic wisdom which has been directly revealed by the Lord Himself. Through that wisdom I come to know the glory of that Maya, of Lord Vasudeva, the maker of this world, by knowing which man attend to his supreme abode. O sage, I have thus indicated to you how actions they acted to the Lord, who is the ruler of this universe as well as the supreme Brahma, served as the cure for the threefold agony. O Vyasa of commendable vow, the same substance which contributes to a particular malady cannot ordinarily counteract the diseases, but when taken in a properly medicated form, it does not cure the ailment. Similarly, all the activities of man ordinarily lead to transmigration, but the same who offer to the Lord lost their binding character on duties of an obligatory nature that are performed in this world. For those pleasures of the Lord depends the attainment of wisdom combined with devotion. Those who performs their actions in obedience to the Lord's behest repeatedly utter and meditate on the praises and names of Sri Krishna. In the course of such actions, obedience to you, O Lord Vasudeva, we meditate on you. Obedience also to Pradyumna, Aniruddha and Sankarshna. The Lord presiding over sacrifices has the divine mantra, mystical formula for his body, and has no material form. He alone is of true insight who worships him, uttering the name of the four forms as indicated above. O holy Brahmana, when I had thus carried out his best, Lord Keshava blessed me with self-knowledge, mystic power and loving devotion to his feet. O sage of unlimited knowledge, pray, recount the glorious of the Almighty Lord, by hearing which even the wise reach the ends of their quest for knowledge. For they recognize only the chanting of such glory and no other as the only means of relieving the afflictions of those who are repeatedly tormented by trials and turmoils. Thus ends the fifth discourse forming part of the dialogue between Vyasa and Narada in book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramhansa Samhita. Jai Shri Krishna.